Welcome to the Maria Heller Show, on the net since 2000 and still going strong. If you feel like you're not getting the real news, if you feel like you're not connected spiritually, you have found your home. Maria covers a wide range of topics as only a snarky New Yorker can. Straight up, no chaser. No censorship, no corporate sponsors, thus true freedom of speech. Your subscription gives you unlimited access as a member of the smartest audience on earth. Relax and enjoy the education. Now here's Maria.
Good morning, world. Maria here, alive and kicking. Welcome to Awaken with Meria and Monnica, with myself and Monica Sepulveda. If you're not familiar with Monica's work, get over to monica.com. Good morning, Monica.
Hey, and it's Monica with two N's, Monnica. I say that only because at one point in time, it used to be a porn site if you just put Monica, Monica. And I don't want people to think that, hey, look, I give good mind, not the other.
Well, 'tis the season. Everybody's celebrating whatever holiday they are.
Yeah.
And I often think about what Michael Reiki always says on my show. Every year, year after year, they celebrate the messenger, but never got the message. And when you look at, what's going on in the world, it's very understandable. And, a lot of people out there, they're going to ask for things they want. You're going to buy people stuff they don't want. I always tell people, buy whatever you're buying someone else, buy it if you really like it for yourself. So if they don't want it, you can keep it.
Oh, my gosh. Well, you know what? I grew a pot plant this year for the first time because I moved into this new house and it was there. Dried it out, and my nephew's getting a whole bag of pot.
Not a bad gift. Not a bad gift.
I know.
And just so my listeners know, do not try that at home if you're in a state where it's illegal.
Illegal, exactly. It's
Right.
legal here.
Right. Viva la California.
Yeah.
I thought we'd start today with a question I got from Laura.
Okay.
She says, I know you've talked about it before, she says, but I really like to ask about the proper ways to ask the creator or the universe for things without the energy of needs or want, which is lack-based. She says, I get hung up on how to ask and allow to be completely open to receive.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I have your answer immediately. I mean, my spirit guide, Gabrielle, speaks to me, so I'm telepathic, and I hear the answer before the question's even asked. The thing that I received just now, telepathically, was you don't ask for anything. You give thanks for what it is that you want, even before you receive it. So people pray incorrectly or they meditate incorrectly, thinking that they have to ask for things. What you do is you have to give thanks for those things. And when you give thanks for them in advance, they come to you all the time.
Well,
without failure.
It's interesting because just this week I was talking to one of my clients doing a reading, and she kind of asked the same thing, but I'm listening to the language. I always listen to the language people use. And when she talked about, what I need, what I want, and I said, when you talk to the universe and use the word need and want, they will bring you more need and want.
Exactly. Right on.
So you have to use the term desire and require. Words matter.
Those are good. Desire requires good, and then give thanks for them. Don't forget about being grateful. Even when whatever it is that is going on in my life, I immediately just say, I give thanks today for this and this and this, and even though I don't have it yet, it's already in the spiritual dimension. It's just got to manifest in the physical world. So that means it's already there because we have access. To me, it's almost like we have this genie. Asking, you shall receive. Seeking, you shall find. Knocking, it shall be done unto you. But here's the next part. Once you give thanks for something, you cannot worry about it. You cannot be fearful just in case, or you can't be doubtful of the process. We have to do our part, like it says. The old quote was, God helps those who help themselves. If you want to grow beautiful strawberries in your garden, you can't just stare at the soil and think they're going to grow themselves. You have to plant the seeds first.
Exactly.
So we have to do our part by taking action. And so many people, they ask and ask and ask, and then they fear and fear and fear or worry and worry and worry. And that dominant emotion is going to actually dilute the request and even the gratitude for it, because we have no faith. And so if you remember this, when we fear, the definition of fear is an absence of love. Now, what is God? Higher power, the I am, the source is love. It's not a gender, it's love. So when we fear, that's an absence of love, duh, okay? And when we're worried, that's the opposite of faith in ourselves and in the process. And when we doubt, we don't even trust that which created everything, which is love.
Right.
So think about those little points and take some notes, because this is important. This is the basis for creating everything. And the planet Earth, we're here because we were given free will. And it is done unto us as we believe. So if our emotions are all over the place with a lot of density and negative and toxic emotions, such as those three, guess what you're not going to get? You're not going to get that which you desire and require and that you gave thanks for, because you're not doing your part. So we have to do our part. That's like, it's so important, because some people say, well, I'm spiritual. And I'll go, no, you're not. And they look at me like, yes, I am. I'm like, no, you're actually not. I said, because if you were spiritual, you wouldn't be worried all the time. You wouldn't be fearful all the time. You wouldn't be doubting all the time. Spirituality is not what you know. It's how we live our lives. It's action.
Absolutely. Well, again, it kind of reminds me of a joke, but it says it all. And it's
good.
A joke about this man. He dies and he goes to heaven, and supposedly he's talking to St. Peter, and he says, you know, I was a really good person my whole life. Why didn't you ever let me win the lottery? You know, I was, I didn't do anything wrong, but yet I never won the lottery. And he just keeps going. And then when he finally gets exhausted, St. Peter says to him, you could have met us halfway and bought a ticket. So it's like, you can't just visualize and think, if I imagine something, it's just going to magically appear. You have to take action. Everything in the universe is energy.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, that's right. It's absolutely right, because we, like it says, when I was Catholic back in the day, when I was in my teens, God helps those who help themselves, and it is done unto us as we believe. So we hold a lot of power. We're very powerful human beings. Each and every one of us make a difference. But for God's sake, I'm using an old expression again, because I never even use the word God. I use my source. The source is love. But people understand this. Do our part. We got to do our part, and that's what's going to make the difference. To the person who wrote you that question, there's your answer.
Right. Right, and you have to stand in trust. This is another thing that people don't understand. If you really say that you understand that all time exists at the same time, when things don't come to you when you want it, you have to also realize that the universe's timetable is better than yours.
Absolutely. Right on, Maria. It's, I call it divine timing. And that brings me peace. If something doesn't happen when I want, I'll just say, hey, I'm releasing this to you for divine timing, and so be it.
Right.
So we have to understand that. I mean, when a woman's pregnant, she can't say like, well, I want to have this baby now. I'm 5 months pregnant. I'm done with it. You have to really respect the timing. You got to wait until you're 9 months. You can't just, and everything has timing. Businesses have timing. There's lunar cycles, there's women's cycles, there's biorhythm cycles, everything has timing.
Right, and it could come down to even selling your property, okay? Because I have people that, I'll read for, and, they'll ask me when their house is going to sell or this and that. And I can only see what I'm being shown. But sometimes there are delays, and even though it doesn't make sense at the time, when you really look back at the things you asked for in your life and when they weren't delivered compared to when they were delivered, you realize that it was for the better. Mm-hmm. There's always a reason. Do you know what I mean? I remember...
and Maria, a lot of people don't like to do the work. Like I'll make a prediction for them and I'll say, but you have to do this first, this second, this third, then it's going to sell. And then when it doesn't, I said, well, did you do this? No, I didn't. I said, well, then of course it's not going to sell because you didn't prepare correctly. You continue to worry, you continue to fear, you continue to do this and that. You're taking control of your life. Why don't you relinquish that control and surrender? Work in tandem with that which created all things, which is love. I said, and then watch what happens. Oh, yeah, okay. And it's like, wow, it's really funny how people like to make you wrong when something doesn't happen when you told them, but yet they didn't do the homework. And I'm good at homework. I give a
Right.
lot of
But
homework
you
to my
know what,
clients.
though? Sometimes when you do the homework, it still doesn't happen. And then you have to look at, and you will, sooner or later, you will look at that it was better for you.
Yeah,
And listen, I can talk from personal experience. During the
sure.
crash in '08, when everybody was losing their homes, I tried desperately to sell my house, and no matter what I did, nothing was happening. I mean, it was like I couldn't give it away. So I
Well, that wasn't in your
decided,
highest interest. It
right.
wasn't in your highest interest. Sometimes the universe takes over and says, no, 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 that's not the way you're supposed to proceed.
Well, and
And
I
so
didn't, right. And I didn't realize till 4 years later when I was moving back into my house, because I had rented it at the time. When I was moving back into my house, I said, thank God this house didn't sell.
there you go. In
So,
retrospect, the answer always becomes obvious. It's like, trust the process. And sometimes that's hard to do because we want things so desperately and we don't know what to do. But that's the best time to get centered. And that's why I always start each day with my meditation. Whether it takes 20 minutes or 10 minutes or half an hour, I get aligned first. And for people that don't want to meditate, Jesus, go buy some things like, angel cards or the runes, something where you can pick one every day, get a message, and stay in the flow of that message for the entire day and watch what happens.
right. Listen,
It's
there's so many,
cool.
right. There's so many apps you can download if you're too lazy to flip a few cards in the morning or look at your biorhythms or your horoscope for the day. I mean, there really is no excuse with all the technology available to
Oh,
us.
but, I love the angel cards by Doreen. Her last name starts with a V. Doreen Virtue. Yeah, her cards, I buy them on Amazon, and her cards are the best. And all you do is spread them out on the table and just say, what do I need to know today? You pull one card with your left hand because the left side of the body is receiving. And you read it, and it's right on the money. The same thing with the healing runes, which are about emotional stuff by Ralph Blum, but there's also the runes by Ralph Blum. The gray cover with the gold writing is like Source speaking directly to us. The healing cards are about healing the emotions, and you pick a rune once an hour, and you follow what it tells you to do for that hour. Then after that, it lifts your vibration up a little. Then second hour, you pick another one, and you follow that one.
Mm-hmm.
And again, it's by Ralph Blum, Blum. These are really good sources. They're tools. I use them too, and I use the pendulum as well. Get a crystal, put it on a chain, or buy one for $6 on Amazon. I prefer that people either use the amethyst because that connects to the right brain and pituitary and pineal, which is intuition, or if you use the pink crystal, that's the crystal of love.
Right.
So, there's ways of using those in order to find out yes and no questions, but believe me, did they bail me out when I was looking for my footage from the 1966 Beatles concert at Candlestick Park when I took Super 8 film. And then all of a sudden, Ron Howard comes calling, does anybody have any Super 8 film from concerts? Yes, I do. Candlestick Park, row 2. Submitted it, and I ended up in his movie.
Right. Well, another good thing people can do is, it's that time of the year where everybody's buying calendars. And there are a lot of calendars that have a daily affirmation on them.
I love those.
Or there's so many books where you can just pick, you can open the book anywhere and there's a daily affirmation or uplifting thought for the day. I've actually had authors on the show that have written books like that.
Yeah.
But something to focus on. And another thing that I recently read, and I put it into practice myself, is the best time to put out your intentions and desires is when you're just waking up or in that twilight zone where you're just falling asleep.
Yeah, exactly.
So it really
because you're
matters.
in alpha level.
Right.
And the alpha level is not thinking. It's blocking that left brain, the one that questions everything and doubts everything and kicks in all the negative emotions,
Right.
It's like switch over to, how you switch over to the right brain, Maria? All you do is start putting more weight and more energy into the left side of the body because the right brain connects and takes over the left side of the body. So if you want to use the right brain more when you're standing in line at the grocery store, shift all your body weight to the left side. Start picking things up with your left hand, and it starts triggering the right brain. That's how you do it. It's not hard.
No, it isn't. I wanted to ask you your opinion. I've had people ask me this question for decades. They'll look at a person like you or a person like me who we have come to really trust our knowing. We trust our intuition. We stand in a place of trust. And one of the questions I've often been answered is, how do you know when you're in trust?
How do you know when you're in trust? Because you have peace.
But I think
nothing affects you, nothing worries you, nothing torments you. You have harmony and peace, and you feel like you're in the now because you are.
Right.
Like the quotations, you find them all over Twitter and Facebook. Because if you're anxious, you're living in the future. If you're depressed, you're living in the past. And when you're at peace, you're in the now. So that's how you know.
Right. Well, when people ask me, how do you trust your spirituality, or when did you get to the point where, what day was it? And I tell them the same thing I've said for so long, and you'll probably agree, and maybe you won't. I say, listen, when I was young, I used to think, how will I know when I'm not young anymore?
You used to say the same thing.
Oh, okay, so you probably will agree. And I used to think, well, will it be when I'm 21? Will it be when I'm 30? Will it be when I'm 50? But the truth of the matter is, it happened, but I could not tell you when it happened.
Mm-hmm.
And I explained to people using that parable, it's the same thing with trust.
Yeah.
You don't know when it happened. It just happens. And I think that it happens because you've used your intuition, you've contacted your higher self, the source, the great spirit, whatever you want to call it, long enough to test it. And once it's tried and true, it's just an automatic. It's second nature to you to say, yeah, I know this is going to happen and this is going to happen. And I trust it.
And I totally agree with that, definitely. I also find for myself that anytime I get to the point where I've been in so much control of things, it wears me out. So when I get sick and tired of being sick and tired, I surrender. Then I find the peace, and it's like, oh, this feels so good. What was I thinking?
Right. Well, how many times have you heard the story? We all have heard these stories where a couple tries so hard repeatedly to have a baby, but once they go and adopt a child, the mother gets pregnant.
Yeah, exactly.
So sometimes you truly do. I know it's a corny saying, you need to let go and let God.
Yeah. No, it's not corny. It's really true. I mean, whoever wrote these words knew what they were talking about. And people understand that when we keep doing the same things over and over, expecting different results, Einstein, this is the definition of an insanity. So stop doing the same things over and over. They don't work. You can change the trajectory of your life by just doing something the opposite of it. Duh.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's
Absolutely.
like, look, I've been into this work for 47 years. In May, it'll be 47 years that I've been practicing legitimately. Before that, I was 11 years old when I was receiving information from people who passed over. I'm now 67, will be 68 in April. So it's a long time. It's a process. It took me a long time to learn certain things. Of course, back then, we didn't have teachers and books. I ended up finding books all over the United States as I was looking. But most of the books that really taught me the most were the ones that were written in the 1920s and 30s and 40s. And then those books back in the day were only like 75 pages long, but boy, did they teach you everything. Now all of a sudden you got to buy these books that are like 500, 600, 700 pages.
Right.
It's the exact same thing.
I understand. Believe me, you have no idea of the ever-growing stack of book submissions I have on my desk.
If anybody knows, you do.
Right.
Definitely.
And years ago it was interesting because as a Reiki master, a lot of people started submitting to me their Reiki books. And some of their books were like 500-600 pages long with tiny print. And I would just look at the book and say, whatever could they be writing about? Reiki is the most easiest, simplest thing to explain to anybody, to discuss the history of. And truthfully, after a while, I said, I have to counter this madness and write my own Reiki book, which I made. The entire Shulamil is 22 pages. So
there you go.
So
there you go.
Right.
And if you actually take that information and put it on YouTube, like visuals, I don't learn by reading. I learn by seeing. That's my learning strategy. I have to see it, and then I've got to do it. So I have a visual kinesthetic learning strategy. But reading, that's why I don't read directions when I buy anything new and there's directions. I don't even look at them. I'll figure it out myself. But YouTube is one of the best resources to learn anything if you're a visual.
Right. Oh, YouTube's I got to tell you a funny story. As I was having the stress fest of everything going wrong technologically last week. And then to add it all up, besides my internet moving slower than molasses running uphill, I go to upload one of my shows, go to post one of the shows, and for anybody listening that has their own website, who happens to use WordPress, which, I don't know, 100 million people, it looks like, do, it's an entirely new format. I mean, brand new, entirely new. It might as well have been in Chinese. And I looked at that and I was like, oh my God, okay? So I called my web guy and I said to him, have you seen the new WordPress template? And he signs on while I'm talking to him and just freaks out because he's got hundreds of clients, I'm sure, using the same thing, and they're not as adept as I am. And I said, David, I've been looking at this. I says, it took me about 10 minutes to figure out how to get it usable, but I could see where there's some glitches and I can't get my audio there. And he went into a total panic because he knows that he calls me lightning fingers. He keeps telling me to slow my fingers down so I stop messing up my server. So I promised him I would take a Valium, which I don't, before I type anything into my server. But the first thing I did when I hung up from him, and believe me, the reason I've used him all these years is he's a WordPress expert, and I needed somebody like that, and yet he was blown away. I immediately got on YouTube, and bingo, there's a guy who has this video. Whatever you do, don't download WordPress 5.0. But if you did, so I start watching this like 48-minute video, and he showed me a trick, and I'll share it with the audience because I'm sure you people have websites too. You can get a plugin for it called Classic Editor. All you have to do is install that plugin, and it'll take you back to the old way of doing it, at least until they fix the glitches in the new one, which I thought the new one is excellent. It's got a lot more stuff you can do. But I'll tell you what, right after that, I called my web guy, who didn't answer the phone because I figured he's being hammered by a million people. He probably doesn't want to hear me complain again. So I sat down and I sent him an email. And I said, David, a simple fix. I put that in the title bar so I knew at least he'd open it, right?
Yeah.
So I told him what I found, and I said, look, you always complimented me. I'm your only client that's never broken her own website because I know what I'm doing. I said, but this is your saving grace, this simple little plugin with all your other clients. He immediately wrote me back, thanks a ton. I mean, I could feel his stress release just because I looked for that. So, this really does fit into what we're talking about. You could either sit back and get flattened by it because they're predicting a lot of small businesses are going to go bankrupt because of this change. Or you could go and look for a resource, look for a tutorial. You could take action and actually do the learning so you're not left behind the 8 ball. Mm-hmm. But otherwise, I was ready. I looked at that thing and I said, that's it. My show is over. That was my first thought.
Oh, my God. Well, Mercury was retrograde this month and the end of November, but we went direct on Thursday the 6th. But we're still in the shadow period, and the shadow period sometimes is worse. So there's a lot of problems with broken technology, delays, appointment cancellations. People that book sessions will cancel those sessions with computers, with cars, all that stuff. And we're getting out of that shadow period by the 24th. That's when it's at its weakest. And then after that, it's going to be full speed ahead. We're going to be good. So I felt people should always keep track of Mercury retrograde because it does cause havoc.
Oh, absolutely. Even my internet, it slowed down. Listen, it normally takes me about 3 minutes to upload my show when I'm done to my server.
Yeah.
Well, it started taking 28 minutes. So when I called my provider and I told them, they acted like I was crazy because they ran a speed test from their side to my side. So, no, everything's fine. I said, no, everything's not fine. Your system's getting ready to crash. Well, of course, they ignored me, but I did beat them up into sending a repairman out. He comes out, puts in a new modem. Yesterday, I go to upload the show. It's still taking me 15 minutes. So I called him back. I said, the problem's not solved. What do you think she tells me, Monica?
What?
Oh, we're having issues in your area.
Duh.
I said,
okay.
When I told you that last week when you could have taken action, you talked to me like I was crazy. So it's been that kind of week. And right after all that, I saw the new WordPress and I was like, oh God, time to hit the Bahamas, time to get out of town.
Well, I'll tell you, people should keep track of the retrograde, especially in Mercury, because it happens like 3, sometimes 4 times a year. Mm-hmm. But the thing about it is, what I found with the last one, when my finances were really slow, as soon as Mercury retrograde kicked in the sign of, I believe it was Taurus, and Taurus rules my second house, my finances went crazy. They went up like crazy. So sometimes it's actually good. But you have to know your astrology chart. You have to know what houses are controlled by what planet or what sign or whatever. Mm-hmm. And then you can tell how it's going to affect you. And it doesn't mean it's going to beat you. Like, it's said in astrology, it's okay to know what's happening, but the fool is the one that's controlled by astrology.
Exactly.
So
you still got
I read that from a book in the 1940s, and I thought, okay, so then I have to do the opposite things in order to negate that. Because the light is more powerful than any planet, anything else. So it doesn't mean doomsday for everybody, but you're on notice that these are the things that can go wrong. So what you do is you want to put out the opposite energy. Of course, one of my packages was delayed. They all got here by last Friday, but this one won't get here until this Friday. And so therefore it was, somehow lost for a while, but I finally got the update today. So if you're having problems with any purchases that you made and stuff, all you do is call the company, make them red flag it, especially if it's UPS or something, and then they will contact them and put a search immediately. So I don't sit there and do nothing. I do my part. But Mercury retrograde, we had a lot of retrogrades this year.
Yes,
a lot
we
of planets
did.
were in retrograde this year.
It felt like the whole year was in retrograde. I still get people calling me when it's not in retrograde to say, is Mercury in retrograde?
Yeah.
Earlier you talked about fear, and what I find myself repeatedly telling people, especially when they continue to worry about the same thing over and over, is what you fear, you draw near. And I try to warn people, the more you talk about going broke or whatever it is, the more you're going to make that happen.
That's why Roosevelt said the only thing to fear is fear itself. And, I find that it's an acronym, false evidence appearing real.
Mm-hmm. Well, I like to say forever experiencing another reality.
Or false emotions appearing real. There's a bunch of them, but they're all good.
Exactly. Well, change is the constant. I always tell people, if your life's not changing, you're dead. You're not growing. There's nothing happening there.
And our reality is basically reflecting what's going on inside of us. So the world is so beautiful and giving, this planet, that it's always manifesting who we are, not what we want. So when it shows us things that we don't like, it's okay, I need to change that inside of me in order to change the outward manifestation. So that's the good part about it. It's always teaching us, and people freak out, look what's happening to me. And I'm like, no, look what's happening for you. Mm-hmm. So, it's taken a while, but I realized that this world is really about physics. Einstein was right. It's really about physics. Don't become so detached to the things that happen. Look at it as data. Data. This is information for me to make adjustments on the inside because I'm that powerful I can manifest anything. So now I need to make this change because look what happened. And especially with relationships with women, when they draw a man, let's say, who's not available to them, who's always making excuses, who is flaky, who's not committed, and who cheats, I always say, well, then look at yourself. Where are you cheating yourself? You keep abandoning yourself because you're always criticizing yourself. So, of course, you're going to draw on the same kind of person who's going to be the manifestation of you, only magnified.
Right.
So don't blame him. Look inside. And
Well,
then
I
you'll
mean,
get a new guy.
of course. Well, listen, every relationship teaches you something.
Always.
And, the ones that, go real easy and smooth, what are you really learning? But your partner is usually reflective of yourself and vice versa.
Yeah.
So,
Always.
usually the things you don't like in somebody else are things you don't like about yourself.
Yeah, like I always say, when you point the finger at someone, 3 fingers are pointing right back at us.
Oh, that was my father's favorite adage. He used to tell us that all the time.
So giving and receiving, why is that so important? Because a lot of times people give. I used to be one of those. We are called people pleasers because we feel so inadequate. We don't feel like we even have the right to live on this planet. So we give to other people to hear them say, oh, look how wonderful you are, because we can't even get into our own self-esteem and tell ourselves how wonderful we are. So the issue with giving so much is an insecurity, and it always goes back to our childhood. You got to find the genesis. And so now that means we have to reparent ourselves differently than the way we were parented, because a lot of people do a lot of damage to these kids, and the self-esteem is already formed by the time we're age 2. So start parenting yourself differently. And what I do is I got a picture of myself as a little girl, and I look at her. She's 5 years old. She was already damaged. But I talked to her, and I just said, am I abusing you? And she said to me, yes, you are. You're constantly criticizing me, telling me terrible things about me. She said, we've already been through this as a little girl. Why do you continue to do it? So when I looked at the picture, I started crying, and I said, I'm so sorry. I'll never do that to you again. And I had the picture framed, and every morning I pray to her, and I tell her how beautiful and special she is. And that helped me overcome my feelings of not feeling good enough. But yet at the same time, I did things in life and made decisions in order to shine, to compensate for my insecurity. And insecurity is actually tied in, and self-esteem rather, is actually tied in with money. So the way we feel about ourselves, and if we're talking about how we're lacking and don't have, we're going to continue to lack and don't have.
Especially if you don't believe it.
Again, like you said, the words are powerful.
Especially if you don't believe you deserve. Anyway, we're going to take a short break. Stay with us when we come back. We're going to talk more about giving and receiving. And maybe during the break, you can think to yourselves, am I a giver or am I a taker? And where's the balance? So stay with us. We'll be right back.
Hi, this is Monica Sepulveda of Wake Up with Meria and Monnica. You can hear us every second Tuesday of the month. We offer you solutions and tools to help raise your own vibratorial frequency. And as we stay in this light of love, we shift ourselves and the planet shifts by itself. No reason to react to the negativity that's going on this planet when we're all so powerful. So why not use it every morning when you wake up? Actually, I'm doing this promotion for selfish reasons. I just got to tell you that Meria is probably the best. No, I know. She's the best intuitive reader I have ever met in my life, and she's underpaid. Check out her prices and check out mine. There's differences. Yeah, I know what I'm doing. I'm a medium. I contact people who've passed on. But this woman is incredibly accurate with her predictions. I've never met anybody so gifted. She's so wonderful as a friend, and I'm humbled to be on her show. Thank you so much, Meria. Sorry I had to plug you here, but I just have to brag about you. You're that good. Take care, everyone, and make it a great day. Bye.
Hi, this is Maria Heller. If you're enjoying this show, please consider listening to the rest of it, along with hundreds of other hours of education, by a small subscription on my site. Get over to meria.net, meria.net. You are the only thing that supports this show. There's no corporate control, and there's plenty of education on site. So please consider either a subscription or a donation to keep the work going. There are too many alternative voices out there that are being silenced because of lack of support. So if you don't want MSM to be the only mind-controlling news out there, please consider supporting the people that support you and help us all save something for the future for our children. Thank you so much.